There's zero job security in that. Who are we kidding? I don't agree with that decision to remove it as a requirement. So, a day in the life of a creative writing major. Is creative writing worth it? Hello, my name is Michaela McGregor, and I am studying for a degree in creative writing at the University of Chicago. I'm currently a fourth year, and I'm going to be graduating this spring, so this is my fourth and final year of doing creative writing. There are 3 tracks offered here. There is poetry, nonfiction, and fiction under the creative writing major, and I am studying for the fiction track. Just to start off with my background and some of the creative writing courses that I've taken, I began with a Fundamentals in Creative Writing seminar, and that was on research. It was called the Numinous Particulars, which was a good introductory one to get me familiar with how do you implement research into creative writing without overwhelming your writing with all the facts that you found. I've also taken a couple of advanced workshops, historical fiction writing on banned books, killing cliche, and then I've done another one on environmental writing because you're allowed to do one advanced workshop that's outside of your primary genre. In environmental writing was nonfiction. And just as a side note, I'm also doing for my minor astronomy and astrophysics, which is pretty common, I think, and I'll talk about this more, to do a dual major and minor between something that's STEM and humanities. So why did I choose creative writing? I went into creative writing because I have always really enjoyed storytelling, and I think like back in 3rd grade I remember starting to write my own stories, and it was something that I was always interested in. I don't think that I ever intended on doing it in college. I thought it was just something I wanted to do as a pastime. So to actually major in it, that was a little bit more unexpected, and I think that was due to the fact that I honestly just fell in love with the courses and I couldn't see myself devoting this much time to any other major because I just loved creative writing that much. And I really liked also the heavy reading load that came with the creative writing major. There's a lot of literature courses that you have to take, and it just really suited what I wanted. So what are the requirements for a creative writing major? This is going to depend on where you go to school, but here at the University of Chicago, there are 13 classes that I need to take to graduate with the major. Fundamentals in Creative Writing seminar, 2 technical seminars, 3 advanced workshops, 2 of which have to be in the primary genre, 4 literature courses, 1 has to be literary genre, 1 is literary theory, 1 is pre-20th century literature, and the other is general literature. 2 background electives, and then you've also got to take a thesis workshop during the winter of your 4th year, and I am taking that right now. So what's the reputation of creative writing? And again, I can't speak for every school, I can only speak for the University of Chicago. It's a relatively new major, and I think that that's true of a lot of universities. Creative writing just isn't something that was taught decades ago. You know, maybe you could take a creative writing course or do something in creative writing for an English major, but it was really just the English major before. And for that reason, I think it needs to build up credibility in a way. People are still figuring out the curriculum, how it places in a job market, and when you say here at school, I'm majoring in creative writing, it doesn't have prestige to it. And I don't mean this as a bad thing, I just mean it more in the sense that if someone tells another student that they're a neuroscience major, I think that that inevitably is going to get more acclaim than a student who says to another, yeah, I'm a creative writing major. I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of the arts, whether it's visual arts, theater, and just other humanities in general, English, gender studies, all of those. I don't think they have the same caliber of reputation. And I don't want this to diminish how I think of creative writing and how I think it should be thought of, because I think it's very valuable. And again, I'm going to get into this more later. In general, I'd say the reputation is that it's a very artsy major. I think people think of it as a fun and easy major. People don't think of it as something rigorous, you know, like if you're going to spend money on a tuition, then you've got a double major because just majoring in creative writing isn't enough. It's not worth the value. It's kind of the impression I've gotten. That's not to say that people look down on it at all. I think it's still respected, just in a different way. But I will say, like, my own experience with the reputation, when I've gone to meetings for the Ryerson Astronomical Society, I remember in 2nd year, it was like an observation night to look through the telescope, and we were all kind of introducing ourselves and saying what our majors were. And everyone was going around saying like, yeah, I'm an astrophysics major, all of that. And I'm there and I'm like, I'm a creative writing major. So I kind of felt like an imposter in a way. I did kind of feel that sense of like, I'm not as smart as these other students here because I'm not doing astrophysics major. I mean, like, I'm doing a minor, but that doesn't count. Even though the other students don't say it, it's not like other students are looking down on it. You do just kind of feel that bit of the reputation, I think. It has this reputation of being easy and fun. And how true is that? Is it actually hard? This is going to be very difficult to answer because it's going to depend on how much you enjoy writing and how good of a writer you are. There's a lot of writing in creative writing classes. I mean, that's self-explanatory. So in the typical workshop, you have to be writing constantly and working at your own creative piece, but at the same time, you've also each week got to be reading through 20 pages of someone else's work, usually 2 other people's work, so like 40 pages total maybe. And you've also got to write a mini essay to both of them. And I say mini, mine are usually like 2.5 to 3 pages long. That's like 6 to 7 pages per week of critiquing like craft, content, style. For me, I do find this aspect of creative writing to be easy. And that's just because I enjoy doing literary analysis and critiquing, and it just is something that I've always liked. So I don't think of it as being difficult. I like writing in general. If the thought of like doing 7 pages per week of literary analysis and critique is hard, then maybe it would be hard. But then also there is the other components that come with creative writing. If you haven't taken a college literature course, it sounds easier than it actually is. So for instance, last quarter I took Jane Austen and we read all 6 of her novels over the course of 9 weeks, but not just the novels, which I think it would be a heavy reading load with the novels alone, but every single week we also had to read 2 to 3 pieces of literary criticism, which could be like up to 50 pages in length. So there's a lot of reading that comes with these, and you've got to write essays, midterms and final essays. And these essays aren't easy either. Creative writing is difficult if you find writing difficult and reading difficult. If not, then it's probably going to be an easy major. Now, the double major with creative writing. This is a very popular route to take. And I will say creative writing is easy in its requirements because a lot of majors require a lot of classes and a lot of labs, but creative writing, you only need those 13 classes and a thesis. And that's, in the grand scheme of things, that's not many classes. So it leaves you open to do a lot more, which kind of leads into the double major. So a lot of students here, at least, you'll hear them doing creative writing and econ and business and biology. It's very common actually for it to be a more STEM inclined sort of double major. I mean, you could do creative writing and visual arts, but I haven't heard as many people doing that. So a day in the life of a creative writing major. Let's say I were to have 2 classes in one day that were for my major, maybe a creative writing workshop and a literature class. Generally, there's a lot of reading throughout the day. So I might even do some readings while I eat, breakfast, lunch, and supper. The creative writing workshops are once a week for about 3 hours. So that would be from 9:30 a.m. till 12:20 p.m. I would be in class. Usually during the class that would involve discussing the readings that we had to do for the week, because a lot of the creative writing classes outside of our own writing, we also do have to read other works by published authors as well. So we would discuss the published works first, typically. And then in the second half of class, we do workshops. We go over people's writing and give feedback. And then once class is over, maybe you do some work on your own piece, editing and implementing revisions that you've been told. And then after that, you might have a literature class. If it's like a Tuesday-Thursday class, it might be 80 minutes. So you might have that from 2 to 3:20. That typically involves, in a literature class, it's usually just going over the reading that was assigned and then maybe going over some literary criticism as well. These are always going to be seminar-based, both the creative writing classes and the English courses. So it's not like a lecture where you can just sit and take notes. During these hours that you're in class for creative writing and all of its required courses, you've got to be on the whole time. So asking questions, answering questions, discussing and responding to other students. And these are also always small seminars, usually 15 students or less. You've got to speak up in order to be involved in these. It's not really about note-taking. I don't ever really take notes actually no, I do take notes during my literature classes, but otherwise it's just more so involving, participating, and being engaged is the important part. And then let's say my literature class is over, I might spend the evening doing a reading for that and then also doing a lot of research on criticism because we often have to write essays for English. So going onto the library website, downloading articles. For example, what is the role of Wentworth's letter in persuasion? This was something that I was writing about last quarter and that I wrote my final on. And then of course, this is only 2 classes, so I always have 2 other classes going on. One of them is usually pertaining to astronomy because of my minor, and then one other, like for example, I'm doing French this quarter. So of course, there's always a lot of other homework that's associated with your other courses, but just to kind of give an idea of what you might be doing in a day for your creative writing major, that's probably what it's going to look like. In regards to preparing you for the real world, how helpful is the creative writing major? I would say it's incredibly helpful, and actually to the extent that it's more helpful than other majors. My guess, I haven't done other majors, so this is just my opinion, is that a lot of majors require a lot of theoretical knowledge, hypothetical classroom discussion, reading of texts that may or may not apply to your future career, because a lot of careers are just going to take that theoretical knowledge and apply it to something technical that you have to do in an office or a lab. And that's not necessarily something you can prepare for in the classroom, but I would say creative writing really prepares you for what you might actually do, because the vast majority of creative writing majors go on to do a lot of writing in their daily life. And what better way to prepare for that than just doing a lot of writing for your degree? I think that in that sense, it's very helpful. What type of internships can you do with a creative writing major? There's a lot of blog writing internships online. These are easier to secure, I think. I've done a couple of these now, and I've always found them to just be very tedious. My favorite internship that I've had is with a literary agency. So I was screening submissions and rejecting authors. And which is kind of cruel. I know, it sounds so cruel to say it out loud. But if you can get in with a publishing house or literary agency, I think that's one of the best things you can do as a creative writing major. But honestly, this is one thing that's great about the major, is it's so versatile, is you can apply to a lot of different internships, no matter the field, because a lot of different jobs require writing. technical writing, professional writing. It could be for a law firm. It could be for a science manual. It could be for a magazine. Like, there's just so many different careers out there that need good writers. I mean, and this kind of goes into job security though. Even though there's a lot of fields that need writing, you have a lot of options, but also there's not a lot of job security if you want to go into the author world, which creative writing implies you want to be an author. Of course, a lot of people who do this degree aren't going to end up being writers. But if you do want to be a writer, in this sense, the creative writing major does not give you any job security unless you secure a job as like a journalist or something and you actually have a stable paid job where you're getting paid regularly. Otherwise, it's like you don't know when your next paycheck is coming in. Who knows if you publish a book or not? Compared to other majors, I would estimate there probably is less job security with creative writing. And that's purely because of the nature of its reputation. Again, it's new, it's not something that's got a lot of caliber in the marketplace, but you also will have the valued skill of writing well, so it depends on what you're applying to. But again, if you actually want to be an author, there's zero job security in that. Who are we kidding? On that note, salary. Creative writing isn't going to get you a really high salary, and if you want a really good salary, and of course the word good for salary is incredibly arbitrary, you've got to go for an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts, or just a master's in anything, a PhD. That's not to say that you can't get a high paying job if you major in creative writing. I mean, there's a ton of people who make a lot off of that, but I think that it's definitely less common. Okay, what are the worst aspects of studying creative writing? I think there's a lot of repetition to it. I love every creative writing workshop, but even though they have different titles like banned books, historical fiction, killing cliche, research, the numinous particulars, who sees and who speaks, perspective in creative writing, all these different titles, they all amount to the same thing. We read some stories, we discuss its content and craft, we do writing. So even though there are some conversations that are tailored towards what the class is called, like, oh, because this class is killing cliche, let's talk about what's cliched in this story. Of course that happens, but for the most part, each class kind of feels like the same one, and I love it because I love each workshop, but there's not a lot of variety to it, I think. And I'm saying this is the worst aspect. For me, it's actually a good aspect, which is enjoyable, even though it may not be the best thing, if that makes sense. I don't think I'm making any sense right now. I will say, though, one of the cons is the quality of the creative writing class is so reliant upon your classmates, which is a very stressful thing. You could have the most amazing professor in the world, and the class is going to be stagnant if your classmates don't participate, if their writing isn't that engaging, if they just don't give you good feedback. This will just kill the mood of the class, and I have taken one like this. It really destroyed anything the class could have been. That being said, this is rare. Most people are amazing. It's not often that someone who's taking creative writing doesn't talk much. Most people are willing to speak and jump in, and it's usually fantastic. The best aspects of creative writing, honestly, I would say the thesis. I have loved the thesis. It's so great to have this purpose, this higher byproduct of the major to work towards, and I have loved the workshop. I've loved spending months doing research. It's been so much fun. And the disappointing thing is they've actually changed the creative writing requirements here, so students no longer have to do a thesis. I think it's like all the graduates who are graduating the year after me and henceforth, they don't have to do a thesis, which I think it's so important to do a thesis for research purposes, writing purposes. I don't know. I don't agree with that decision to remove it as a requirement. Again, the workshops are just going to be the best classes, in my opinion. Also, the literature classes are pretty great. I love the amount of reading. I love the emphasis on reading, and also just there's a really great atmosphere to creative writing. There's a great community in that you can give critical feedback, like, I don't think this passage is working, I think you should delete this, etc. But it's such a welcoming environment, and everyone uplifts everyone's work too. Like, everyone's able to find something they like about everyone's work. You don't leave a class feeling disappointed in yourself. You leave feeling a sense of purpose of, okay, I need to fix this in my work. This isn't working, but I know that people liked this aspect of it. And I think people are really good at balancing that. Do I have any regrets for creative writing? I would say yes, I do. I wish I decided on it sooner so that I could double major. It's so perfect for double majoring, and if you don't, it's kind of wasting this opportunity. I didn't realize what I wanted to do until it was too late. Maybe I would have been able to double major if I hadn't studied abroad, but there just wasn't room on my schedule, and I regret not committing to creative writing earlier so that I could have had the time to accomplish 2 majors while I'm here. I also regret, is there anything else I regret? I wish I'd started on my thesis a little bit more in the summer. I did start on it, but I was just so focused on research that I didn't actually start writing. And I think I could have gotten a lot more done if I had gotten some more writing done in advance. Honestly though, I don't really have regrets. I've enjoyed it. So advice for prospective students though, commit early so that you can decide if you want to double major. If a thesis is optional, do it. 100% do it. And also don't worry about the reputation. Yes, you might encounter people who look down upon creative writing and don't think it's as useful, but I can't imagine a world where we didn't have creative writing majors. Is creative writing worth it? For my goals, yes. I am going into law school, and I am so grateful for the writing tools that creative writing has equipped me with. Now, depending on your goals, it may not be worth it because it's not going to open a lot of doors into high salary industries. That's just the truth of it. If you're looking for a high-paying job, maybe you don't want to do creative writing. It's worth it if you love both reading and writing. You can't just love writing. You can't just love reading. You have to love both. If you don't love one of them or neither of them, I don't think creative writing's worth it because it's not going to open any doors for you in any future industries that you'll want to go into. I don't think career-wise it's a smart decision to make if you aren't in love with the major itself. I hope that this helps you to decide whether or not you want to do creative writing. These classes have been some of my favorites while in college, so I hope that you ultimately want to do it. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a fantastic week.